Hi, everyone. This is Mike Leahy. Thanks for joining us today. Bart Fannin is going to be helping me today, and our session is on improving your inventory management and supply chain with various tools that we have available within our Pulse software and other software. So thanks for taking the time today to join us. I see a lot of familiar names. I wish I could have a 5-minute chat with several of you that I've worked with before, but thanks for being here. Maybe we can do that later. Um, just housekeeping things. We have everybody on mute now, so we don't have difficulties with background noises, dogs barking, things like that as people are working at home. And we have a real varied audience today, so I'm going to try to touch on a lot of different aspects, knowing that every single one of these is not going to apply to everybody, but we'll have fun, and there'll be plenty of time to ask questions. We'll stop periodically to ask questions if you prefer, or maybe the best way right now would be to key those questions in through the questions section on your screen, and then Bart can answer them as we're going along, or maybe he can present them to the whole group. Okay. So this is my picture here. We will all shake hands over the phone. For those of you who are not familiar with our company, we have been in business forever. We have worked with the Macola software forever. Probably 90% of our customers are manufacturers. The remainder are distributors. So we are experts at ERP software. We're based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And one of the things that we do, one of our specialties, is extracting data out of your Macola database to help you make better and faster decisions. So for those of you who are not yet using our dashboard software, these are some things that people have said that that were nice compliments. The one I like is the top one. It's the best analytical tool that I've used in my professional career. Okay, so we're going to dive into inventory control right now and supply chain. So what I want to bring about is some concepts, the basic questions to answer, and knowing that everybody's on a different journey. Everybody's at the supply chain and inventory management is a journey it's a never-ending journey, and different companies, each company is at a different place. There's no right or wrong. So I wanted to just bring up these basic questions. Incidentally, I had a customer that actually we lost the customer. They sold out to Honeywell, but in the process of converting to SAP, I worked with their supply chain people for about a year. And to give you a perspective, they have something like 2 billion in inventory across all of their 100 or 200 locations. So they're pretty good at this. So I'll be touching on some things that I learned with them. But the basic thing here that I want to talk about, which a lot of people don't even think about, is, well, how much inventory do we want to have on hand? In other words, if the boss would allow us to just go spending, we'd stock up, get another warehouse. We'd stock up for the next 6 months or the next year. But of course, that's not realistic. Not everybody has that kind of money. So we have to decide how much inventory in total do we want. That's the tougher one. The next one, how do we know when to reorder? Everybody has different ways, reorder points, they're using MRP, whatever. That's a relatively easy question to answer, but we'll show you some tools that we have on calculating what that reorder level what that reorder point should be. In the old days, with constant usage, it was pretty much, you'd set it at the beginning and it would work okay. Well, now with all the fluctuations that are going on in the economy and in the supply chain, that reorder level needs to be adjusted almost monthly. I have a customer that would update that weekly. And a lot of times when so how much do I want to reorder? Well, that's a tough problem because that depends on your safety stock, that depends on the reorder level, it depends on the vendor's lead time, and we can talk about what other customers are doing as we go along on for example, we have a tool within Dashboard that accurately calculates the vendor's lead time. And then the other big question is, do we want to use a safety stock or not? So reordering levels. Okay, when it comes time to reorder, I can base that whole process on a reorder level. I can base it on a forecast, or if I'm using the Macola MRP software, or the Pulse Dashboard MRP software, then that I'm going to use the MRP regeneration, which includes a forecast and basically is time phasing the demand and replenishment over the next X days. So we have to also be thinking about in terms of replenishment when we order, because we don't want to order every single day. Maybe we're going to order just to cover the next 20 days or the next 30 days. And then again, what I said before, how do we know how much to order and what are our policies? Okay, so I sent you a chart that we can talk a little bit about. This is our inventory pro chart, and it talks about different functions, different features within our Pulse software that are designed to help you with supply chain issues, inventory management issues, purchasing issues. And the whole idea is on the left side, it talks about better visibility. It talks about optimization and cleanup, optimizing what's the ideal amount of inventory that you should be having at any one point. And then the analysis and action. If you've not noticed this, if you're using our dashboard, you probably have noticed that over the past several years, our software is much more oriented now to analysis. At the beginning, 12 years ago when we started this, it was basically replacing all the reports in Macola. And I think at this point, we probably replaced 99%, maybe 90% of the reports, with the exception of the posting journals. We replaced those with easy to use reports that you can customize yourself. You don't need an IT person. You don't need to know anything technical. But those were the basics. Then we've gone to exception reports, analysis reports. So a lot of what you're seeing that's coming out more and more are analysis reports. And I should mention also, there may be reports today that you have not seen before in your version of Dashboard. And all of you were sent out it was a document that we prepared called our Pulse Dashboard catalog. And it contains about 100 reports that are more custom reports or analysis reports that are all available at no cost. It's just a matter of ordering it from us. So if you've not seen that catalog, or if you're seeing reports today that you don't have, feel free to call us, and we'll send you a copy of the catalog or send you the individual reports. So again, we have better visibility, we have optimization and cleanup, we have analysis, and then we're also going to talk today a little bit about this newest product that we have, this web portal that allows the vendor and you to have a much better communication. And we're excited to show you what that looks like. Basically, and it's an ideal product. The timing is almost perfect. It's an ideal product for better communications with the vendor. And I'll tell you my quick story, true story, unfortunately. And that is we were out of this part, or the customer of ours was out of this. It was a real critical part. And everybody was excited because this Monday or this Tuesday, we were expecting the delivery of that part. And it was like a 3-month supply. And it took forever to get there. So Monday and Tuesday went by, no delivery. Wednesday went by, no delivery. So finally, at the end of Wednesday, they called the vendor and said, "What's the deal here? Why haven't you delivered this part?" And they found out that the vendor never had received the purchase order. So with our portal software, you'll see how this is real-time interaction between you and there's no more emails, there's no more faxes and things like that. Everything is done real time. If the vendor needs to change their delivery quantity, if they need to change their lead time or their date, they do that on the screen, and then you are notified. It's not a guessing game anymore. Okay. I also sent you, we're not going to talk about it, but I also sent you a document that we put together on how to perform a mass closing of old purchase orders. It's part of what a lot of times people are not clearing out their old purchase orders. So for example, if you ordered 100 and only 95 came in, that remaining 5, Macola still thinks is coming in, and that's part of your replenishment that's now inaccurate. So you can look at that document. If you have any questions, feel free to call us. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the software. And maybe as we get started, Bart, I wanted to talk about expectations. We have such a varied audience. Bart, are you getting any questions from anybody about, or people would like to put in questions right now about what would they like to get out of this software? For example, one person said, I'd like to get a good overview of what's in the purchasing module, and we're going to cover that. So maybe starting now, if you have specific expectations. Okay, Bart?
Okay. Yep. Nothing yet, but yeah, feel free to enter it in, as Mike mentioned, into the question area.
Okay. So for those of you who are new to our software, this Pulse dashboard software sort of lays on top of Macola. It's reading Macola data real time. And you would say, well, that's nice. But we would also want to point out to you that we have taken the very excellent Macola database and we have made it much, much better. In other words, we have analytical exception programs, queries that run in the middle of the night, and they go back a couple of years and they're calculating inventory trends, they're calculating usage, calculating sales as well. So we'll show you what those are. We've also taken the software to the next level with inventory turns. That's this screen right here. And I should mention, we also have a document called the Pulse definitions document. So if you're concerned about what's the definition of usage or what's the definition of some other things, please request a copy of our Pulse dashboard definitions. But I should mention that when we were developing a lot of this, we hired my Apex coach to verify, especially in the area of inventory turns, how to best do that. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm going to go to the inventory status screen, and I want to point out some things to make sure that everybody knows that this is available and that this additional information can help you in your improving your inventory management or supply chain. So the first thing we have is all of these data fields that are in the cream color or the whitish color, yellowish color, depending on your screen. These are data fields that we have added to the Macola database that do not exist. So for example, months of inventory on hand. I think we also have days on hand, but we have months of inventory on hand, and then we have 3, 6, and 12-month usage. Okay, so why do we have that? So because there's no place in Macola to look at trending. So I can see, for example, that a year ago, I was using about 23 a month of this item. In the past 6 months, I haven't used any. In the past 3 months, I haven't used any. In this case here, this one, we used about one per month. So that the trend, the trending is steady on this one, but on this one, so this is information that would tell you, is the usage going up or down, or is it flat, or at what rate is it going up and down? If it's going up 500% versus 10%, that's going to tell you, because that impacts, if you're using reorder levels, that is impacting what that reorder level should be. And remember, the reorder level is the quantity, the reorder quantity is the quantity that needs to be ordered. That's the quantity that you will consume during the lead time. So if the lead time is 30 days, it's basically going to be a 30-day supply. If the lead time is 45 days, it's going to be the quantity that you use within 45 days, plus a safety stock, and then possibly plus a buffer. Okay, so let's look at some of these other data fields that we have. Date of last usage, date of last inventory activity, date of last purchase, date of last manufacturing, date of last sale, and then we already talked about inventory turns. So the idea would be that I'm looking over here and I'm seeing that I have a 60-month supply of something. And part of what you may want to question is, in the spirit of optimizing your inventory, is why are we continuing to buy? Why did we have a purchase order a couple months ago when we have 60 months of inventory on hand or 100 months of inventory on hand? I sorted this down by months of inventory on hand. So this tells you a lot. Some companies require the disposing of inventory, over a certain amount of months. So, for example, if you are German owned, probably you're required to dispose of all inventory quantities over 24 months of usage. So the idea is we're just going to trash those away. We're going to throw that inventory away or try to sell it or try to sell it back to the vendor. But this date of last purchase is something that's very, very helpful. So let's take a look at this inventory detail view. This replaces Macola's multiple level item view. Excellent report, but it was developed about 25, 28 years ago. So what this is showing is in white, on-hand quantity is allocated. This is up to the second. And then in addition to that, so I'm looking at this one part at a time, months of inventory on hand, data last sale, data last purchase, year-to-date usage. Well, year-to-date usage is not helpful at the very beginning of the year. So we've added a 12-month usage and a 12-month average usage. We've also added, for some of you who have used this for a while, we've added the ability to put buttons up at the top here. So I can take a look at inventory turns for this item. Let this come up. Or I'm able to look at inventory aging for this item. So for those of you who haven't seen this feature, call our support desk. But what you can do is add buttons, which will call any report that exists within the system. So what we've added here is we've added the ability to look at it by location, by bin, by lot number. And what's really nice about this is you have the column chooser. And for those of you who are new to the software, the column chooser allows you to add any piece of information that has anything to do, in this case, with an item. We've converted all of the data fields to business English. If you're a technical person, you can hover over and see what the actual field is. The concept of linking goes away completely. So now this just gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of what columns do you want to be showing here. But the big part of this is that we've added another thing that we've added. Remember, everything in the cream color or yellow color we've added. So we've added the ability to look back 12 months and see what the on-hand quantity was for the past 12 months, to see what you purchased by month, what you produced, usage, and transfers. So this is something that did not exist. So if you're a planner, this kind of information might be very, very helpful. This particular detail review is also doing an MRP regeneration just for this one part. So what does that mean? I can look at my demand, my replenishment, and my net on-hand quantity week by week by week to infinity. For those of you who are really into this, I purposely put this 3,000 in here. This is a bad purchase. This should never have been in here because all of a sudden it bumped up my average usage way beyond what it needed to be. So this is the way you can see that kind of stuff. Are people ordering too much or too little? We also offer, for those of you who are using Macola's MRP, you know that there's an MRP file that's basically showing you the layers of why it has done certain. And this is what we're doing with our program as well. So it allows you to see if you're saying, well, no, this can't be right. Nobody would ever order this 3,000. You can see when it occurred and why it or who did it. If this is a manufactured part, you can see the bill of material. And then for all parts, there's a where used. So just this is not something you're going to use every single day, but this is very, very flexible. We've also replaced the inventory transaction history file. So in the case of supply chain shortages, it's going to be more important to understand where's the inventory going. So if you're scrapping if you're scrapping or making inventory adjustments at a large level, again, this is going to be able to tell you. So for example, if I want to look at quantity adjustments, I just type in ADJ and I can see that. So again, this is replacing the very good Macola inventory transaction history, but it's giving it to you in English and is giving to you in a much more concise fashion. I didn't mention something else for people who are new to the software. I can move fields around. I prefer to have the description. I can click on a field, on any field, and have it sorted ascending or descending. Or what I can do is I can say, can hit this little funnel, and I can say I want to look at just quantity adjustments and just receipts, and there we are. And then to get rid of that, you just X out of that at the bottom. Okay, so let's get back to reorder levels and having things be accurate in Macola. What you've seen so far in our dashboard software is all reading of information. And now you're starting to see the beginning of the writing back to Macola. We are writing back to Macola. So what this program is doing, this says recalculate reorder levels. So in a lot of uncertainty that's going on, if you are using reorder levels, then I'm encouraging you, they need to be looked at monthly, if not more. In other words, the reorder level that you established 5 years ago or even a year ago was based on the usage at that moment, and that usage has changed. So there's rules here, and the rules are, I'm not going to go into this, but the rules are SQL queries that we develop for you that basically say, what do we want our reorder level to be? Again, it might be something as simple as if our lead time is under 30 days, we're only going to keep a 1 month supply on hand plus a buffer plus our safety stock. And depending on, so what we're doing here is this is showing you the current reorder level, the current min, and what our suggested min is. If you don't like that, you can override that. And then it's showing you what the order up to level, the current max is, and what the recommended max is, as well as the safety stock. So if I was to click update values, it would take all of these new items and push those back into Macola. And it has a history report, plus you can say certain items, maybe that are new items that don't have a history, you can exempt them from this. We also have the same capability for determining vendor lead times. The same thing being that the lead time that you were given by the vendor a year ago or 6 months ago may be totally inaccurate. So this is called our Recalculate reorder levels program. If you're using reorder levels, this is going to be very, very helpful. If you're using Macola's MRP, you probably do not want to use reorder levels because that's extra work. You need to use the period requirements. Okay, so this is something that we have that's very, very good. A lot of people also focus their attention on the parts that are the most critical, and that's what we'll call the ABC class. So we have an ABC class generator program. And what that's saying is I'm going to look at purchased items. I'm using my traditional 80, 15, and 5. I'm looking at this per item. And what this is going to do, it's going to look through all the inventory, and it's going to tell me items that I currently have in here. Like this item is currently a B class, and it should be a C class. So if I was to press this button up here, this would take these calculations and the new class, it would move that into Macola. Now, if you don't like that and you want to leave it as a C, you can override that and put it and override it, and it won't change it. So again, I should mention to anyone who's using Macola's current, I hate to say this, Macola's current recalc program, the program that recalculates ABC quantities, it does not work. First of all, you should never commingle manufactured and purchased items together. It makes no sense. So this is something that might be very, very helpful if you're into making sure that your A items, especially like what I'm going to look at here is these are my A items, and you can see a lot of these really should be B items, even a C item. Okay. I'm thinking about what else do I want to show. Just as a for some people who don't know about some of the new features we have, you're seeing this. I've linked two reports together, and you can do this. And if you're unsure how to do this, please call our support desk. But we have the ability to link any two reports in the system together. So I wanted to take like a stock status report by product category, and I wanted to be able to look to see what my real-time inventory turns are. So all I do is I click on the product category at the top, and it recalculates the inventory turns down below. And again, when you're looking at inventory turns, it's ideally the trailing month should be 3. And the reason is that if you make it 12, this line will be flat. You're doing a lot of work to improve your turns, but you won't get any credit for it because it'll look like it hasn't changed at all. So leave that setting at 3 months. Okay. So let's dive into the purchasing module. So again, what we're kind of talking about here is we're going back to this chart here where we're talking about optimization and clean up the ABC codes, clean up the min maxes, clean up the vendor lead time, so on and so on. I have down here daily recalculating. And for those of you who are in the inventory area, we're finding more and more of a need for customers to run the recalculate on order quantity and the recalculate allocated quantity program. It may be that you can just run it during lunch hour or just before you leave, run it and just let it run. It may take an hour, but that's in addition to what we're doing here. Okay, so we're going to go back here and we're going to go into purchasing. Well, the very first thing I want to show you, purchasing is a forward-looking job, and that's why I included that paper on how to do a mass closing of purchase orders. Your attention has to be into the future. It's understandable. You're not going back and cleaning up things, but it also is an extremely tedious operation. And so let me show you what we're doing. This is a demonstration of our purchase order generator software. So I'm going to make believe that I am Pete Bowers and I am in the Cincinnati office, Cincinnati warehouse. And so what this is doing is it's saying that it's looking for everything that needs to be ordered for my buyer planner code. So I'm going to click on refresh. And it's telling me that all of these vendors need some kind of attention. So I'm going to look at this just to demonstrate what we're doing. I'm going to look at this Chicago box company. And I'm going to say, I'll come back to this. I'm going to say yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that I know that I have to buy this in boxes of 100. The Macola order multiple is wrong. I'm not going to buy these today. And I'm going to click on here and say create the purchase order. And here's the purchase order. It's got the latest number as if you pressed F5, and you can change anything here. You could even change the vendor if you wanted to. And you can make this a released or an unreleased order. You can add items here. If you wanted to remove an item, you could. And when you hit save, then this creates, in this case, an unreleased purchase order for this vendor. So let's go back and look at this again. The reason we have all this data, and this is all user defined, is that on your journey to clean up your data and improve things, if it's telling you to order 1681 and you're saying there's no way, I don't even use this part anymore, why is it doing this? This is telling you, in this case, you can see 3, 6, and 12-month usage was 0. Something is telling you to order this when maybe it should not. So these fields here are all for you, they're all movable, and all you can get rid of them if you want to. They help you decide. But then in this particular case, I know I have to buy this in boxes of 1,000. So I'll put 2,000 here. But the point is, I don't have to type it in anymore. I can just click here, and say create purchase order. And there's my purchase order. And again, if I decide that Chicago Union Supply will not give me that, doesn't have the product, I can choose an alternate vendor. And I can choose anything that I can change anything that I want. If you are weight conscious of your buying, it'll show you the cubic meters as well as the total cost as well as the weight. And then what would happen is when I issue that purchase order, these parts would go away and I would just work my way down the list until I got all the way done. So again, this is based on rules, and we convert your English rules into SQL rules for optimizing this. So this is our purchase order generator. So let's talk about let's talk about something that we just developed. I've been doing a lot of reading the past month, kind of getting prepared for this, and I read these articles from the manufacturer side, from the vendor side, from the trucking side, from the on the water side, and a lot of it comes down to communications that aren't going well. So I'm going to bring up our purchase order portal. So this is a web-based product that is designed that each vendor would have this, and so we'll kind of go through the workflow. You issue a purchase order to the vendor. It's emailed to them. On their screen, it'll show that you're waiting on them. So they click on what they're being waited on. They confirm the price, they confirm the due date, they confirm the quantity. You can send them technical specs, you can send them messages. Later on, they can change the due date if that's needed. But the point here is that we have a real-time dashboard that's showing you and showing the vendor what's going on. So for example, if you're issuing items to the vendor and then you're saying here you're waiting on the supplier, that's going to tell you that you have to notify them, you have to do something. So the idea being that it's more of a partnership. It's real-time communication. Why is this being late? They can explain later. If they're kind of squeamish on telling you something's going to be late, they can do it sort of anonymously here. So you can create as many of these reports. This is just, here's purchase orders missing promise dates. These are late purchase orders. So you're able to take some action. So there's two versions of this. There's a version that sits on the vendor's desk, and there's a portion that's and a screen that sits on your desk as the buyer. We're looking at the buyer side right now. So this is our new purchase order management software. Actually, this is a collaboration that we have going on with another vendor that is also in the Macola marketplace. And but this is web-based, so this can be used any place in the world by any vendor. And so Bart, we're kind of at the halfway point, a little bit more. Are there questions that we want
No.
to talk about?
Yeah, no questions yet. I guess maybe in both products, if you want to just mention, are you able to narrow down to who can see what security-wise, or who has control to what's being used as far as vendors or users go?
Oh, yes, you mean on the dashboard side?
Either side.
Okay. Well, on this side, you decide when you're setting this up, you decide what reports each vendor is going to see, and you determine what reports each buyer is going to see. And it's the same thing within dashboard. You're seeing all the reports, but everything uses Microsoft SQL security. And so everything is basically on a need to know basis. So when you're setting this up, it'd be maybe certain people are allowed to see this, uh, um, or so on. Okay, so this is the most popular report in purchasing, and this is purchase orders scheduled to be received. And this is going to show you, for example, if I sort this down by date or by request date, I can see here that I have an order from back in 2018. I ordered one, it never arrived, probably is never going to arrive. So maybe this needs to be deleted, and so on. So you're basically working your way down and making sure that these older purchase orders are all have all been cleaned out. I have two other reports that probably are important to look at here in terms of supply chain, and that is at the customer service level. We have a report that shows, let's say over the next 5 days, what finished good products I'm not going to be able to ship out to the customer on time. And the idea being that you're going to look in here and see, in this case here, we have production orders that are making it, scheduled to make it, but they must have a shortage because they're all sitting there doing nothing. So the idea being that, again, this is finished good shortages. In the area you're more comfortable with, we have component shortages for production orders. So again, what this is doing, it's going through each production order. That would be pop orders as well as shop orders, looking at the bill of material. We can include unreleased orders if you want to. But the idea is, let's make believe that it's Monday morning and I want to, can I make it through Friday? What problems am I going to, and I should mention also, this is a full MRP regeneration within our software. So I have 38 components that are going to prevent me from finishing production orders on time in the next 5 days, and thus impact our ability to deliver to the customer. So what you can do is you drill down onto each one, and this is including a forecast. So you're seeing an MRP forecast in here. So this would read either the Macola forecast or it's the same forecast. So in this particular case, you're seeing there's a replenishment that's coming in. It's coming in too late, and it's coming in too little, an insufficient quantity. So if you think this would be helpful to you, what this is doing is it's time phasing over the next 5 days all the sources of demand and replenishment, and then it's looking into the future to infinity for any other replenishments. So in other words, you may say, well, over the next 5 days, we don't have another purchase order. Maybe we have a purchase order coming in 2 weeks from now. Well, that's not the case. In other words, there's no hope for this part. It will never get itself, these production orders will never get finished unless something's done, like another replenishment purchase order. Let's take a look at another one here. These are all red means bad. Let me see if we have another. Okay, here we have one where we have a purchase order that's coming in. It should have been requested earlier, so maybe we need to expedite it. But when it does arrive, it is of a sufficient quantity that it can take all of these production orders and all these production orders into the future. And then, oh, by the way, we have another purchase order replenishment that's coming in with 4 months from now. So if you're an expediter or an analyst, the idea would be, can we lean on this vendor somehow and have this be delivered earlier? So again, this is in customer service. These are finished good shortages. This is for the customer service manager. In production, this is for the production people, production analyst or inventory analyst. And this is including a forecast. So let's go over some of what we've talked about a little bit earlier. In the inventory module in dashboard, this is where you're going to be able to right size your inventory, understand what's happening, see where the shortages are, and make sure the lead times are correct. This along with this recalc here, make sure that the lead times are correct. And then in purchasing, you're going to have our purchase order generator that we looked at, and you're going to have the PO Manager web-based portal. Now, somebody said to me recently that we looked at this and they said, well, our vendors wouldn't go along with this. They would not comply. And it's like, well, those vendors, you are their customer. What do you mean they're going to refuse to comply? So I think that, that maybe was not a good comment or not an accurate comment, but this kind of technology where you're putting this tool, because it's much better for them as well. It's eliminating emails, eliminating faxes. It's giving them a much closer relationship. So maybe if you were to implement this, this might be maybe just your top vendors or your problem vendors. But but it is going to take some work to get this implemented at each customer, at each vendor. And again, and we've talked about the PO generator. We also have a demand planner software. I don't have any data showing here. This is for people who, for companies that have very long lead times, 90, 120-day lead times, and then have, in addition to that, they have an in-transit lead time on the water. So this typically are going to be people who are buying components in Southeast Asia or in China, and they're having to order today. Today is February 24th. They're ordering today for deliveries in June. So it takes a little bit of a different mindset. So what it's doing is it's telling you that today, this is what you need to buy. You need to place a purchase order for these items so that they'll be ready in a 60-day lead time, plus another 30 days on the water. And again, you can change these. If these transit times are going crazy, then you can change those in transit times to kind of get a recalculation of what needs to be ordered. I should mention this. This is our supplier scorecard, and let's focus on this mercury supply here. Of the last 382 receipts, they were late 307 times. So you might say, well, obviously we either need to get rid of them or we need to straighten them up somehow. So if we look here, it's showing you that they're 80% late. Well, I did mention earlier, I'm the designer of most of this software. And when we developed this supplier scorecard, I felt it was important to show not only the performance of Mercury, but to compare that performance to all of our vendors. So in this case here, Mercury's 80%. They definitely have problems, but all of our vendors are late 55% of the time. Now, why is that? Do we have bad vendors? Is it possible that we're not communicating clearly to the vendor our requested delivery date? If there was receiving inspection involved, it would show that down below here. And then we have customers that use this with vendor negotiations. This then lists all of those receipts. This is all of those 320 receipts that were late with Mercury Supply. So the idea being, if you're sitting down with them, or if you take this report and you export it to Excel, they can see maybe they have a little bit of work to do. So this is something this is all part of trying to improve that supply chain and trying to improve that the communication of when you really need something, or if it's not available, then to change the date. I didn't mention before, when a date back here in this web portal, if your vendor is changing the date, that's pushing that directly into Macola, real time into Macola, and then it's going to notify you on the screen here, notify you of due dates that have been changed. So I didn't mention before, this is real time, allowing the vendor to better communicate with you. So Bart, we have questions that I should stop and answer right now, or are there things that I have forgotten to talk about?
No questions. Again, feel free to type any. I guess I'll just piggyback on some of the comments there. The part of the idea on the vendor portal there is it's really accountability going both ways. So for example, today you're trading emails back and forth, and maybe somebody's out of the office one day and they come in towards the tail end, and do they have the latest copy of what the current promise dates are? And the nice part about this is it shows the before and after snapshot of each time anything changes, whether it's a promise date, a price, and as you'll notice in some of the items in the middle area near where Mike's mouse is, it says notes for supplier to read, and these are going to show whether the supplier has actually read your latest update or not. So again, this tries to avoid the I never got your email, or yes, I did read it. Well, did you read the last one? Well, this shows the history as Mike is showing here, which makes it convenient going in both directions, because the mistakes can happen on both sides.
Yeah, very good point. This shows you that these top four, well, top more than 6 of them, have not been looked at. And this may not be of interest to everybody today, but we also have a companion program to this for customer orders. So if your company has distributors, like we're talking to somebody right now that has over 300 distributors, and it's killing them because they have to key in all these orders every day. So the idea is you now can get your distributors to key in the orders for you, and they don't have to be put into Macola Live. They can be put in on hold, where your customer service people can review them and make any corrections rather than just push it into Macola. Well, Bart, what kind of questions are you getting?
Let's see, we've got one here. Can you turn off the direct input back into Macola when they change a date? And I can answer that. There's actually an approval button that you can enable that would allow the customer, or the vendor, I should say, to change a promise date, and you as the internal buyer can approve before it updates in Macola. And that's the only one we've got.
Okay. Well, I promised that we would keep this session. Everybody's time is valuable, especially in this crazy supply chain days. I promised that we would be 50 or 55 minutes, so I think we're in good shape. A lot of times people have questions that they think about afterwards. Everybody that signed up today got an email from me, so you could reply back if you had questions about anything. For those of you who are using Dashboard right now, and you want a question, you can go up to Help, and you can go to About, and then this is Tom Schindler's direct phone number, and then this is his direct email. And for those of you who worked with Monty Guy over the past 10 years, I talk to him all the time. He lives now in Northern Ohio. He's retired. He says he loves everybody and he misses all of you. But Tom Schindler is coming out of a chemical manufacturing, a lotion environment. And he knows manufacturing, he knows supply chain, he knows Dashboard. So he's very, very, for those of you who haven't worked with him, you may want to call and introduce yourself. But otherwise, just don't worry about it. When you need him, just go up to Help, go to About, you can click here and you're in. So we feel very fortunate to find somebody. Monty had big boots to fill. He'd worked with Macola for 30 years. I had worked with Monty for 30 years, the last 10 at our company. But before that, he was the person I went to when I needed a second opinion. So, he's not on the beach with sand dunes. He's actually shoveling snow in Northern Ohio. But anyway, I wanted to mention that. So thank you all for your support of our software. For those of you who are new to our software, not or potentially looking at it potentially, we do offer our software on a 20-day no-cost trial to kind of try the software out. So if that's of interest, give us a call. So for the rest of you, thank you very, very much for your support of our software, your ongoing support of our software. I see a lot of names here that are nice and people I've worked with one-on-one in the past. So thank you very much for all your support, and best into the future with your supply chain. And if you have any ideas for things that we've not included, please give us a call. Either contact Tom through the email or contact me with your ideas of making the software better and better and better. So, okay, with that, no more questions. Everybody have a good rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.